Okay, so now I'm going to give you an example of sample space. I'm just going to make up some examples from some pretend scenarios and games to draw a sample space for. I'll do a list. Well, I'll start with a tree diagram, then I'll do a list, and then I'll do a table. Remember, you need to do 2 of these in your board game. You don't need to do all 3, but I want to see at least 2 out of list, table, or tree diagram. Okay, so let's start. First, I'm going to do a tree diagram. So in this made up scenario, you roll a 6-sided die to start your turn. If it's a 1 or 2, you draw from the move deck to find out how far you move. If it's 3 or 4, you draw from the gold deck to get gold. And if it's 5 or 6, you draw from the weapons deck to get a weapon that you can buy with gold. I'm just making up a scenario. So first you roll, okay? So first you roll, and then if it's a 1 or 2, I draw from the move deck. You're just gonna have to excuse the bad handwriting. It's really hard to write on Jamboard, but that says 1 or 2, you draw from the move deck. Come on. Come on. Move deck. Okay. And then 3 or 4, you draw from the gold deck. And then 5 or 6, you draw from the weapon deck, and that's an E there after the W, I promise you. Now, my sample space is not done because I want to then also include what happens when I draw each deck. So we'll say the move deck has 3 options, which is I can move 1 space, I can move 2 spaces, that says spaces, or I can move 3 spaces, okay? Then the gold deck, we're going to say in our scenario, has 3 options, okay, which is 3 gold, 5 gold, or 7 gold, okay? And then the weapons deck, in this made up scenario, you could have a sword, which we'll say is worth 1 attack, a bow, 2, or a lance, which is worth 3. Okay, so these are, so now I have a sample space here for when I roll. Depending on what I roll, I draw from one of 3 decks. And then each of the decks, I can get one of these 3 options as my outcome for the turn. Now, we're not discussing the probability of each. We'll do that when we get to theoretical probability. So now we'll do a list, okay? So I'm going to do another made up scenario. In this scenario, when I get into a battle, I have a hand of cards, and the 3 types of cards are this first guy who does 1 attack, the second guy who does 2, and the third, the knight there, who does 3. And then, so in a battle, in this pretend game, I play a card and then I roll a 4-sided dice like that one. So I'm going to play a card and roll a die. And then my combined attack power is the attack of the card plus the value I get on the 4-sided die. So I'm going to show us what a list would look like for this. Okay. So in the list, I have 2 things, right? And you'll notice with the list and tree diagram, you got to have 2 events there, something like that, to create your outcome. So I've got here the card and die. Okay. So I have a card with a value of 1. All right, that's going to be this guy here. So if I play him, my options for my die are 1 and then I roll a 1. So that would be an attack value of 2, 1, 2, attack value of 3, 1, 3, with an attack value of 4. And sorry, I need to get back to my Jamboard slide. Attack value of 4, or one card of 1 and a dice roll of 4, which gives me 1, 5. And I can do the same for 2. Okay, I can go a card of 2, dice of 1, card of 2, dice of 2, dice roll. I play a 2 card, and again, when I say I play a 2 card, I mean this middle guy here. Play him and roll a 3, or play him and roll a 4. So then my options are 3, 4, 5, 6. And then lastly, I could play the 3 card and pair it with each of those 4 dice rolls. So I could then have a 4, 5, 6, or 7. So there is a list of all the possible outcomes. This is the sample space. So that's a list diagram of all the outcomes for that scenario. And now the last one I'll do will be the table. So generally for a table, people use it like when they're mapping 2 dice, which is what we'll do here. Some students have come up with some other simultaneous events where when you combine them to get the single outcome. But dice is really common. We could have done a table for the play the cards and roll the dice. One side of the table would be my 3 cards and the other would be the 4 outcomes for my dice. But I'm going to draw a table. I'm going to give you a new scenario just to help you think about different ways you can do them. So in this game, I roll 2 4-sided dice. So those are dice that are going to look like this pyramid. And I roll 2 4-sided dice that can give me a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I add them up to get my attack value. But if I roll doubles, meaning the same number on both dice, I get 0 attack. So I'll show you what that'll look like. So here I have a 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is where I'm going to have my table. Okay, so my possible outcomes, and when I list all possible outcomes, that's my sample space. Or if I roll a 1 and 1, remember I add the dice together, but if it's doubles, I get 0. So a 1 and a 1 would be worth 0. A 1 and a 2 would be worth 3. 1 and a 3 would be worth 4. And a 1 and a 4 would be worth 5. And then here, a 2 and a 1 would be worth 3. 2 and a 2 would be worth 0. 2 and a 3 would be worth 5. And a 2 and a 4 would be worth 6. Here, I have a 3 and a 1 be worth 4. 3 and a 2 would be worth 5. 3 and a 3 would be worth 0 because it's doubles. And a 3 and a 4 would be worth 7. Now, 4 and 1 would be worth 5. 4 and 2 would be worth 6. 4 and 3 would be worth 7. And 4 and 4 would be worth 0. So there is a table of the 16 outcomes I would have from rolling 2 dice in this game.